I want a divorce.
I want a divorce.
I want a divorce.
I want a divorce.
I want a divorce. Please. The first case is Duck V.S. Duck. Mr. Daffy Duck. V.S. Mrs. Daffy Duck.
Divorce. I want a divorce. The best years of my life slaving over a hot nest. And what thanks do I get? You barnyard boob. The minute my back was turned, he did it. You fugitive from a feather bed. Well, you water-soaked weasel. Don't stand there. Say something. Say something. Don't you dare open your mouth. You and your lies. Divorce. I want a divorce.
Now, Mrs. Duck, just a minute. Just a minute. Suppose you tell us just what happened.
Well, Your Honor, everything was going along all right until one day last week I had to go over to my mother's and, now, Daffy, I may be a little late, so I want you to sit on Junior and keep him warm till I get back. And if you don't, I'll wring your full neck.
Yes, my love.
Remember now, none of your nonsense.
Yes, my love.
Now listen, you stay in the house and keep that egg warm.
Yes, my love. 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 Oh, yes, 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 my love. Yes, my love. Yes, yes. What's that? Yes, my love. Hocus pocus, flippity flam, a razzmatazz, and alakazam. Say, pretty good, huh? Boy, oh boy, if Major Bulls could only see me now. Observe closely. Nothing up here. Nothing up here, and nothing up here. Hocus pocus, flippity flam, a razzmatazz, and alakazam. 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 Alakazam, 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 alakazam. Say, is there a magician in the house? Alakazam, alakazam, alakazam. The little woman. An egg. I gotta get an egg. Where's an egg? Oh, my kingdom's for an egg. Who's an egg? Where's an egg? Where's an egg? An egg. Here, egg. Where's the egg? The egg. Give me the egg. Here, egg. Give me the egg. The egg.
Is he all right? Well, get up and let me see him. Get up, I said. Mama's little darling. Daffy, this is the last straw. I want a divorce. I want a divorce. I want a divorce. I want a divorce.
And what have you got to say for yourself, Mr. Duck?
Please, please, Judge, give me just one more chance.
Well, all right, but remember, just one more chance.
Focus, focus, flippity flap. The razzle McTails and I hope I get this right now. Alakazam!
Alakazam and you get an egg. Oh, dear. And for 15 years, I've been doing it the hard way.
Case dismissed. Step down. That's all, folks.
The finest in underground television.
Prospice. To fear death, to feel the fog in my throat, the wind in my face, where the snows begin and the blasts denote I am nearing the place. The power of the night, the press of the storm, the post of the foe, where he stands, the arch fear in a visible form. Still the strong man must go, for the journey is done and the summit attained ere the barriers fall, though a battle's to fight ere the guerdon be gained, the reward of it all. I was ever a fighter, so one fight more, the best and the last. I would hate that death bandaged my eyes and forbore, and bade me creep past. No, let me taste the whole of it, fare like my peers, the heroes of old. Bear the brunt, in a minute pay glad life's arrears of pain, darkness, and cold. For sooner the worst turns the best to the brave, the black minutes at end, and the elements rage, the fiend voices that rave shall dwindle, shall blend, shall change, shall become first a light, then a peace out of pain, then thy breast, O soul of my soul, I shall clasp thee again, and with God be the rest. Robert Browning.
We live in a world that seeks answers. On reflection, before there can be an answer, there must first be a question. So here we have a show about questions. The questions that you bring here today will provide you answers and perhaps even insights. A veritable cornucopia of possibilities exist. Odin gave an eye for wisdom. The question remains, what will you give? For you see, here before you lies a gateway into instant access to the answers that puzzle and mystify the human mind. We are not interested here, however, in questions of a mundane nature. We seek the questions that have no answer. For Dr. Hal possesses the knowledge that can only be drawn from a life steeped in classic, esoteric, and underground resources. Dr. Hal will, especially with lubrication provided by generous offerings, be your source and guide to the panoply and myriad wisdom to be found in more exotic realms of thought. To invest in your wisdom, monetary donations may be submitted to our tip jar website, which is being displayed at the bottom of the screen. You may also pledge a love offering in our audience chat, and our ever-present stage ghost will forward you a link to Dr. Hal's tip jar. It will be my responsibility to present your question, as well as your love offering, to Dr. Hal, who will then expound upon it in a way that only Dr. Hal can. So get those questions and love offerings in to Dr. Hal so that we can drain his brain for the betterment of all Yeti kind. Beekeeping comes with a lot of terminology. The home that we will set up for our bees is simply called a hive. The place where we keep our hives is called an apiary. The hive that we are setting up today is a very simple design called a Langstroth hive. The Langstroth hive was developed by Reverend Lorenzo Lorraine Langstroth, an American apiarist, clergyman, and teacher, and is considered to be the father of American beekeeping. He created the hive in the mid-1800s that many beekeepers, including myself, use to this day. What set this hive apart was that it featured removable frames. This allowed regular beehive inspections to occur without destroying the honeycomb structure. Regular inspections are desirable since we want to help the bees build a strong colony, and the ability to correct problems as they arise help both the bee and the beekeeper. We will be committing to inspecting our hives once a week, but more on that in a future installment. Today, we are building a brood box or hive body. This is where the queen will lay her eggs for the expansion of the colony. It is the first part that we want to have ready when a new colony arrives. All pieces have been painted on the outside and cleaned for the new season. Here you see a basic unassembled brooder box. We will start with the hive stand. Next comes the screened bottom board. A card is inserted into this that will allow us to check hive health, but more on that later. We then use a standard full-sized hive box, which will hold our frames. A wax sheet has been inserted into the frames that we will be using. Rubber bands help stabilize this, and the bees will build wax comb around it. Notice the reinforcements. Because we are getting our colonies in a package called a nuke, we will only need 4 frames installed in each of the hives, since the nuke will come with 4 frames already colonized with bees. More on that, however, in a future installment. Now we add the inner cover. Note the additional entrance for bees. Over top of this goes the telescoping outer cover. Finally, an entrance limiter is put into place. This limits the amount of bees that can enter or exit the hive. That is a basic hive. We'll add additions as the colony grows in size. We were also busy putting in the first of 2 raised beds being added to our garden this season. Here you see the very simple construction from materials to planted boxes. We use a slightly modified version of the square foot gardening technique which can be found on the web. We highly recommend this method of growing. We insert inexpensive metal fence posts and install fencing horizontally across the beds. This is used as a trellis system for the tomato plants. And I remembered to turn on my mic. So, everyone, place your bets. At what point in the show will I forget to turn my microphone back on? Greetings, everybody. We're back. Good to be here. We're fully inoculated. St. Joyce and I were out on the town this week. We did all kinds of shopping. We went shoe shopping and clothes shopping and all that stuff. So we're kind of back in the world again. I think a lot of people are joining us. St. Finker, I think you're right there with us, aren't you?
I've been dealing with the woes of everything. I had a mouse infestation, and then I went out today to grab some snacks at the convenience store, and my steering column froze. So, like, the key won't turn in the steering column, so I had to get that towed back to the house. That was why, when you guys were talking earlier, I ran out for a couple minutes because the tow truck was dropping the car off.
Maybe now's a good time for me to mention your tip jar on Ko-fi.
So, no pressure or anything, but if you go to the Gonzotronics
Pressure.
Dr. Hal, you'll find my Ko-fi tip jar there.
Yeah, it sounds like St. Finger could use some assistance this month. So if any generous sub-geniuses out there would like to contribute to getting his steering column unstuck.
The fun and excitement of life in America.
It's all part of life's rich pageantry.
Yeah.
Tonight
we have entertainment.
We do. Oh my goodness. We have Phat Mandee joining us tonight. We have John Shirley joining us tonight. Talking about his 2 new books that are out there. He has a really excellent book that we'll be talking about, and also an anthology of fiction that he has coming out that we'll be talking about. So what you're saying is
he has an excellent book, and then he has one that it's pretty
a collection of stories. I don't call it a novel, but it's still an excellent book, I suppose. It's all excellent books. I've never met. Well, I take that back. I have met a book I haven't liked. L. Ron Hubbard wrote Mission Earth series. There was 10 books, and it almost cured me of my love of reading.
I read every last one of those.
I did too. Don't know why. They were like peanuts. I don't know why I read them all.
You know what it was? You knew you were reading bad literature, but you were so invested in some of the characters that you didn't care that it was just stupid sitcom level sight gags and crap that he was describing.
They were so formulaic. Every single book was exactly the same, and the plot just changed slightly from book to book. It was really hokey. It almost cured me of my love of reading, and almost terminally cured me of my love of science fiction.
I have a CD of Edgar Winter Group playing all songs written by L. Ron Hubbard.
We'd play it here, but we'd get sued.
No, we use it for a coffee. It's something that, it exists in the world, and there was no reason for it to, but oh well.
I miss AOL discs. AOL discs are really good for coasters. I had a whole stack of them that you could just, kind of toss around the room.
Oh yeah.
But they don't do that anymore. I'm sorry. But we have a really good show lined up tonight. We have a lot of things going on. So I think now might not be a bad time to bring Dr. Hal in, unless, St. Inkfinger, unless you have something else that I have forgotten, which is not impossible.
No way! Bring on the good doctor.
Let's bring Dr. Hal on. Friends, guests, and colleagues, let us not keep you any longer from the person you came here tonight to witness. No longer held to the confines of three-dimensional space. Here he is, the man with the answers. We bid a hearty welcome to the man himself, Dr. Hal Robins.
Calico pie, the little birds fly down from the calico tree. Their wings were all blue, and they sang Tilly-loo, and away they all flew, but they never came back to me. They never came back, they never came back, they never came back to me. Calico fan, the little mice ran to be ready in time for tea. Flippity-flop, they drank it all up, and they danced in the cup. But they never came back to me. They never came back. They never came back. They never came back to me. Calico jam, the little fish swam over the syllabub sea. He took off his hat to the sole and the sprat and the wallaby wat, but he never came back to me. He never came back. He never came back. He never came back to me. Calico drum, the grasshoppers come, the butterfly, beetle, and bee, over the ground with a hop and a bound and around, but they never came back to me. They never came back. They never came back. They never came back to me. Edward Lear. Well, greetings. Here we are again, ready to do show number 10.
How did that happen?
Well, time has a way of flying when you're having fun.
I would like to point out for anyone in the studio audience that bet that the first opening with Dr. Hal, I would forget to turn my microphone back on. I did indeed turn my microphone on. So anyone who had that bet has lost. Sorry.
While they get to take a drink there, I don't know why we have to tell them all our little foibles and glitches behind the scenes.
Well, I forget so often, when we come back from these scenes, I silence my microphone and then I come back on and I'm...
Human interest. That's the answer. Yes, we are fallible humans seeking, questing, like that.
Yes, my microphone is on. So,
I assure you, your microphone is on.
The world at large can hear me. So, happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Yes.
We got to...
Our Mother's Day number. At some time during the program, that will be addressed.
We have some questions for you tonight, Dr. Hal.
Oh, very good.
And let me...
Well, I'm sure you told them all that is entailed with getting an answer by asking a question.
Indeed. And I will mention that you can post a question in our chat. And our stage ghost, St. Joyce, will send you a link to our tip jar. But we trust you, so feel free to get out to that tip jar whenever it's convenient for you.
How about those video questions? They can send those in. Do we have any of them this time?
We do not have any video questions this time, although I did get a late video question for John Shirley, which St. Inkfinger can tell us a little bit about. St. Inkfinger arranged to get the question for us.
Yeah, Joe Bouchard is one of the founding members of Blue Oyster Cult and a big fan of John Shirley's work. And somewhere in my archives, I have a video of him singing the John Shirley song. I just have to find it. But he did a video question for John, talking about writing songs for his former band, and also, I guess, a one for his upcoming album he's got.
But yeah, so we weren't able to get that question answered during the time that we sat down with John. So I will get that question over to him and see if we can exchange some answers with that.
Very good.
Next month.
For next month. All right. Well, anyway, I'm going to be doing these kind of out of order. I'll be jumping around. So I will kind of depend that on how the chips may fall. So if I do miss a question, please throw something out in chat. If you have a question about your question, please feel free to put that in chat as well. All right. Dr. Hal, did I forget anything?
Well, I wasn't able to hear, but I assume you did not. I'm sure you told them that if we like the question inordinately, they get special rewards.
That's the thing I forgot to mention, actually, is that a question that we especially like, or one that has a certain monetary flavor.
There's that, yes.
We'll get from Dr. Hal a very special recitation. So with that, moving along, we have a question from Griffin. What did the Cetiosaurus dinosaur that lived in Mercia dream of? And he did give a link for that, but I'm not sure I can get that over to you.
It's difficult to tell with such a dinosaur, or speaking more largely, any dinosaur, whether they distinguished the dream state from the waking state. But if you may remember, in an earlier episode, we showed a dinosaur similar to the Cetiosaurus, who chewed some psychedelic mushrooms and then had a distressful time, particularly as two carnivorous dinosaurs showed up while he was peaking. But on the other hand, the brain of a sauropod dinosaur is small, though perhaps intricate. It was certainly adequate to the task. One would try to be comfortable in that state, and then just allow all autonomic systems to run. There's a great deal going on in the anatomy of a large sauropod, of which the brain is not the most significant part. Let us say that it dreamed of food and sex, like a lot of beings I know.
Oh, and Dr. Hal, I failed to mention that was a $20 question.
$20? Well, all right. In that case, here is a recitation. How tranquilly the olive branch observes the sky begin to blanch, without a cry, without a prayer, with no betrayal of despair. Sometime when light obscures the tree, the zenith of that life must be past, done forever, and from thence a second history will commence, a chronicle no longer gold of bargaining with mist and mold, and finally the broken stem, the plummeting to earth, and then an intercourse not well designed for beings of a golden kind, whose native green must arch above the earth's obscene, corrupting love. And still the ripe fruit and the branch observe the sky begin to blanch, without a cry, without a prayer, with no betrayal of despair. Oh, courage, could you not as well find out some other place to dwell? Not only in that golden tree, but in the frightened heart of me? Tennessee Williams. Thank you for your question.
Lovely, Dr. Hal. Dr. Hal, I have a question here from a Marlo Ington.
All right.
It is, and this is a $5 question.
Good.
If you punch yourself and it hurts, are you weak or are you strong?
Well, one can be sensitive without being weak. And one can be impervious to pain and weak because of that. But if you punch yourself, are you going to pull your punches, or are you going to give yourself a roundhouse right using a circular motion? I mean, are you really going to whack yourself? It is difficult without knowing exactly how this operation is to be performed, how to judge you from the way you execute it. But what if you keep doing it? Well, in that case, I have to say you are weak because you are following tropism. If you are strong, you could probably resist punching yourself, even if it was expected of you.
Very good. I have a question here from Dr. Penny.
Hi, Dr. Penny.
And this is a $20 question.
Oh, good.
And that question is, why is the key to the gateway his pipe?
Well, that's a good question, and many subgenius sages have debated it. The answer seems to be connected to the experiment where the pipe was removed from the Dobbs gnomon, the Dobbs head. And there, Bob, without his pipe, just appears as some grinning schmuck. So that is why, because the pipe is transformative. The pipe is the key because the pipe is the key to leisure, the basis of culture, which we call slack. One does not smoke one's pipe when one is firing at the enemy from a foxhole, but rather while one is doodling or dawdling, fiddling and diddling, in short, occupying leisure time for the purpose of greater and greater progress in the uptime. Thanks a lot to Dr. Penny, and here's a poem for you by Willie the Shake. Blow, blow, thou winter wind, thou art not so unkind as man's ingratitude. Thy tooth is not so keen, because thou art not seen, although thy breath be rude. Then, hey-ho, sing hey-ho unto the green holly. Most friendship is feigning, most loving, mere folly. Then, hey-ho, the holly. This life is most jolly. Freeze, freeze, thou bitter sky. Thou canst not bite so nigh as benefits forgot. Although the waters warp, thy sting is not so sharp as friend remembered not. Then hey ho, sing hey ho unto the green holly. Most friendship is feigning, most loving, mere folly. Then hey ho, the holly. This life is most jolly. Thank you.
Dr. Hal, I have a question here from Raven Evil Star. It is a $5 question, and it's, if you're trying to fail and you succeed, did you fail or did you succeed?
You succeeded in failing and you failed in succeeding, creating an equilibrium which is not either a gain or a loss, but because of that, nothing to be regretted.
All right. I have a question here.
A rather underwhelming response. I don't know.
I will leave that to you, Hal. You are the giver of the answers.
Well, I'll leave it there as I may.
All right, well, if we can always come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
I do have another question for you.
Let's
see. This is from Reverend Big John.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, despite Bugs Bunny's mastery of slack, Cecil the Turtle and the Gremlin were able to, with little effort, steal Bugs's slack and manipulate it to their own will. Where do slack manipulators such as this exist within the subgenius pantheon? And that is a $12 question, I do believe.
Well, thanks very much for that.
$15 question. $15 question.
Dr. It's getting better all the time.
Inflation.
Yes, you cite Bugs Bunny, who is, of course, a remarkable character. You don't want to run afoul of Bugs Bunny or get him mad at you. But it might be said in his defense that everything he does is in his own defense. It is only in these two atypical examples that he aggresses that he fails to succeed. Interestingly enough, both cartoons, Falling Hair and Tortoise Wins by a Hair, the ones that you refer to, were directed by Bob Clampett, who is always someone to watch for subtlety in plot as well as animation. It was a Clampett cartoon that began tonight's show. Now is the point, Pastor Pressure, where I have to ask you, I need to be reminded again what the question was, because I'm somewhat wool gathering in the answer. Please tell me.
Oh, yes, certainly, Dr. Hal. Despite Bugs Bunny's mastery of slack, Cecil the Turtle and the Gremlin were able to, with little effort, steal Bugs' slack and manipulate it to their own will.
You see, Bugs didn't have slack because he didn't have the universe on his side when trying to go against the universe. Quite understandable in each case. In the case of the Gremlin is a supernatural being who is just there to cause trouble. And actually, that cartoon ends with a kind of equilibrium, with both of them suspended above the earth, but nobody going to be hurt. On the other hand, Tortoise Wins by the Hair. He is cheated by the turtle. These wins are the only two in a long career of cartoons with the famous rabbit, who comes from a long tradition of beast fables and is the protagonist in many African stories. All the other ones, Bugs Bunny is insanely triumphant at the end. So his record is good. To give him a few losses, or in this case only two, is like the deliberate imperfection in the oriental carpet, which keeps it from being a cursed object by being too inhumanly perfect. And it does humanize Bugs and gives you some feeling of interest, because he might not always succeed, unlike watching the Superman cartoons of the Fleischers, where you know Superman will succeed in the end because he's simply more able than everybody else in the universe. Superman versus Bugs Bunny, how would that work? Or Superman versus Popeye, who would win? That certainly is a question for another day. And thank you for your question.
That's quite a quandary. Well, Hal, I'm going to give the Q an opportunity to build up, but we have a monster movie moment that I would like to show for everyone. And I want to remind the audience to get your questions into Dr. Hal. It is the Ask Dr. Hal show after all, and without questions, well, we don't have a show. So get your questions in.
And now for this terrifying monster moment. We defy you not to get a genuine case of the...
I did it. That is a heck of a movie.
Yes. A troubling work.
Yeah, Hal, there's a lot of backstory on that movie. There's
Quite a lot, yes.
yeah, it's quite a storied movie. Where the background of the movie is probably more interesting than the movie itself.
Well, some would think. Certainly they had to suffer to create it, which is a hallmark of art. They had to do all that special effects work and hardly be paid anything. And one of the animators had multiple sclerosis, but animated with difficulty, and so forth and so on. They had to deal with loathsome movie producers. But of course, everybody does who tries to get any kind of a movie made.
As well, you probably know.
Oh, well, sure. There are good ones, too. But we have another monster movie moment later on. So believe me, we have not exposed all of the monster spectrum at this point in our show.
I have a question here from Dr. Billy, and it is a $12 question.
Hi, Dr. Billy.
And he says, question of the month. Do we really need Florida?
Well, Dr. Billy, I was wondering that since I have to go there for X Day, which is held this year in a nudist camp in Land O'Lakes, Florida. And as you know, and anyone does who follows the news, that they are deliberately avoiding COVID protocols, hiding the deaths from the public. This is the way the Republicans run things. It's what they do. Fortunately, I believe that the particular nudist colony is, as they tend to be, sequestered from the rest of the state, and all there have taken the necessary precautions. But in any case, I'm investigating this matter further. Florida may be the first state to submerge under the rising tides of the seas. But I'm sure many more interesting things will happen there before we consider it to be a lost place like Atlantis or Pompeii or Herculaneum.
Someday,
well, the question was, do we need it?
It's
one of our states. It's our territory. We should fight for it. We should try to get those bozos out of there and save whatever can be saved. The Everglades, a nice swamp. There in prehistoric times, the giant terror birds stalked the land. Their fossils are there. There are all sorts of good things there. Alligators. So we want to
alligators and crocodiles.
Yes, there is even a crocodile, despite what you may have heard about the absence of this creature in the New World. It is an exemplar of an exception, as there so often are in these biological matters.
Well, Dr. Hal, who knows? Maybe X Day in Florida will be a seed of subgenius descent that will drive the whole state into a renaissance.
I just have the personal hope that it is a survivable experience. But, at least nothing can be hidden where it's clothes optional.
Truer words have never been spoken. Let me see. I have a question here. Bear with me just a moment. I have another question from Dr. Penny. It's a $5 question.
Okay.
And it is, when St. George slew the dragon in the olden day England, what did the dragon look like?
Well, most interesting question. When St. George, the patron saint of England, slew the dragon, it did not actually take place in England. It took place in what is now Beirut, in the Near East, by a lake. The dragon was wont to swim in this lake and inhabit it when not out. It had been satisfied by being fed a number of beautiful girls in the area, which somehow seems to quiet a dragon down from its malfeasance. But then the Princess Sabra, who you may have heard of, was offered, and it was at this time that St. George came along. St. George may be a saint on the calendar. Actually, he was disqualified some years ago, but Vatican II ruined everything. But he didn't behave in a very saintly manner during his lifetime, considering that he cheated the Roman army by selling them all these lots of defective armor. But perhaps this is not the place to get into that, but rather his heroic deed, where he subdued but did not kill the dragon. Then he rescued the princess, who put all her clothes back on except the long sash which had been wound around her before they prepared her for sacrifice and chained her in the spot. With this sash, the princess wrapped it around the dragon's head, and they led the dragon to the city. The dragon became docile. I don't know why, but it could be like the reason that unicorns can only be captured by a maiden and not by a hunter with swords and spears and things. In fact, unicorns are quite dangerous. So dragons, dangerous even more. So just at the point that the dragon was lulled, as it came through the arch of the city and lowered its head, St. George swung his sword and with a mighty whack knocked the head of the creature to the ground. And out of the neck stump came squirting the golden ichor, which serves as blood of all supernatural creatures. What did it look like? Well, according to Al Williamson of EC Comics, it was somewhat similar in appearance to a theropod dinosaur, but had a series of tendrils or antennas on its head. Its arms were tentacular and branchiate. Its face was quite expressive. In fact, according to the writer of the story By George, which appeared in the late lamented censored EC Comics, the dragon was an alien child who ran off in his father's spaceship but couldn't control it, landed there, and wasn't trying to kill anybody, but humans are so little and squashy, and he was just a child, that some accidents did occur. And so this was a miscarriage of justice and a travesty, killing an alien child, quite large and grotesque, but far from home without his parents. This was an interesting fictional treatment of it. It does provide a good portrait of the dragon. Other pictures in traditional art show the dragon is a Western dragon, or wyvern, which is to say it has bat wings, which may be vestigial, may actually not be good in flight, but are a heraldic component of its appearance. It had a long bifid tongue, similar to that which varanid lizards, like the Komodo dragon, have, or helodermas, like the two varieties of Gila monster, the northern one, Heloderma suspectum, and the southern or Mexican one, Heloderma horridum. These two lizard classes have the forked tongue because they are thought to be ancestral to snakes, and dragons were also considered a form of serpent or snake, sometimes going by the name worm. So traditionally, we are speaking of a lengthy serpentine body with little short stumpy legs and bat wings and a sting on the tail, possibly horns, and an array of teeth similar to the prehistoric Dimetrodon, an early creature which was not a dinosaur, though it's always in the box with the other dinosaurs. The name Dimetrodon means teeth of different types. Unlike reptilian socketed teeth, which are all the same, the Dimetrodon, I'll just hold this one up, had snaggly teeth of different kinds, like the mammals of which it was a precursor. And the dragon is certainly more than a series of extinct reptilian vertebrae. Thank you for your question. I hope I've been able to shine some light on the subject.
I have a $7 question from General Zap.
Okay.
Do caterpillars know that they're going to be butterflies, or do they build the cocoon not knowing what will happen?
They both know and do not know. They know in the body, but not in the brain. Today is Mother's Day, and as William Blake said, the caterpillar on the leaf repeats to thee thy mother's grief. The act of giving birth is to some degree an act of destruction. The caterpillar is subsumed, its body broken down and reabsorbed in the new stage after the metamorphosis. Fortunately, humans don't have to go through quite the same process, although the similarities are obvious.
Well, Dr. Hal, that is our queue is getting kind of light, so I'm going to give it a chance to build up. But we have a guest this month. John Shirley joined us, and you and him sat down together and had a wonderful discussion, and we've got that for our audience this week. So we're going to be playing that, and we also have a special musical feature coming up with Phat Mandee. So all that's coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to roll into those areas. Audience, please get your questions in to Dr. Hal. We have a mind here to milk. Trust me, if we do not milk Hal's mind, it begins to bother him. It hurts. We've got to get that knowledge burned off of Hal's brain.
Just put him in the hopper.
Just put him in the hopper, and we'll ask them. All right, and so moving smartly forward, on to our good friend John Shirley. Friends, guests, and colleagues, tonight the Ask Dr. Hal show welcomes a man of many talents, Dr. John Shirley. John will be here tonight to talk to us about his 2 new books, as well as a whole lot more. We will also be hearing more from John in future segments. John Shirley, welcome. Dr. Hal, over to you.
We want to talk about your new book, and it's a book I just read. The book is Stormland. It's an absolutely fascinating concept and well-constructed story that really holds your interest, especially as you get toward the end. And I saw that on the outside of the book, you have blurbs from some of the best hard science fiction writers, the ones with real status, and they have said good things about the book.
Bless their hearts.
Congratulations on that. Yes. You have any kind of a blanket statement about the book that
Well, it takes place about halfway through this century, 21st century, and at a time when we are reaping the whirlwind, as it were.
Yes.
That might be the name of the sequel.
Hmm.
We were reaping the whirlwind as to our anthropogenic participation in climate change.
Right.
And the greenhouse effect has brought about, amongst other things, extreme weather. And we're aware of this already. It's already happening. There are more and more hurricanes moving up. I just read today, more and more hurricanes noted coming more and faster up the East Coast. And the Stormland is a place on the southeast coast of the USA where storms are permanent.
One starts the moment the other is ending, or there's a very small interval between them.
Right, and sometimes there is a break where, not a break, but a change where the intervening storm, the next storm is an electrical storm, for example, and so on. But basically, it's a series of hurricanes, and typhoons, and flooding rains.
In the book, somebody compares it to the great red spot on Jupiter, a place of perpetual storm. And now, because of man's behavior, Earth has its own spot, which is which is the storm.
Yeah, that was my uh, conceit there.
A good way to
It
visualize.
might be the case, and one of my underpinning rationales, and the scientists do believe that the southeast coast of the United States will be plagued with storms.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not quite this intensely, this long. After all, this stormland has been like this for years. I didn't exactly say how long, but at least 6 years.
But in the lifetime of the characters, they can remember when it wasn't.
Right. And then remember, this is just a 500 square mile area around Charleston,
South
Carolina.
Yes.
And the city has been largely abandoned by people as well as by the United States government, which has become rather frail because of things like privatization.
It's become hideously Republicanized and privatized.
It has in this story. And like, for example, the Justice Department becomes something called Justice Incorporated.
And the national parks have been taken over by the wealthiest individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been
private domain.
They've basically turned them into their private. They bought them and they build on them, and they they create these little enclaves of super privilege.
Super gated communities.
Super gated communities they are. And so you have the contrast between places like that and the pauperized pockets of the country and around the world where climate changes are manifesting at their most extreme. And Stormland is sort of the apotheosis or embodiment of that, and it's created to be a sort of metaphor. I mean, I did my best to make it seem like relatively believable that this could happen, 365 days a year, storms in one place. But it's also, besides being what I think is a really thrilling disaster setting, is a metaphor for the human condition in much of the world that is coming to us, and the struggle for people to find a place in it. So basically, the story is about a former U.S. Marshal who left it because of the privatization and corruption, who works for an agency that finds missing people. And there's more missing people now because climate change writ large, these huge effects, have pushed people out of their homes, and sometimes suddenly and drastically. And so there's a lot of that work. In this case, though, he's looking for a serial killer, and he has been given a hint, a clue, a tip that this fellow may be hiding in Stormland. And then it turns out that the person who sent him the tip is a former serial killer. And the former serial killer has been neurologically altered to completely transform him into what a guy known as the kindest man in Stormland. I mean, he's known as Gerald, but everybody thinks that he's basically a saint. And he actually, I'll give away a plot point if you like. He actually is what he appears to be.
There's a Kurt Vonnegut book. I don't know if it's Mother Night or maybe Mr. Rosewater, where there's a character who is a Nazi doctor who performed horrible atrocities in concentration camps. And now he's out in the world doing as much good as possible. But if he lived 200 years, he still couldn't balance out all the bad things he did in the concentration camps. But do you get rid of him? He's doing good, and he's really helping.
You know, I read that book as a youth, and that might have been the kernel of this character.
Well, it's an interesting concept in the idea of redemption, and does our desire for vengeance overcome the good to society? That someone who's completely flipped and is now good.
Part of what this guy Gerald, who becomes this sort of investigative partner of our
Yes.
freelance police agent. Part of what he is all about is proving out a theory and undergoing an experiment to see if by the government and experiment by the government and a university medical laboratory to see if serial killers really are neurologically based, as they really are.
They have some damage.
Primarily by brain damage, like alcohol, fetal alcohol syndrome, for example, and if so, can they be cured by intervention in the brain? And so then he's an ongoing experiment, and he's being observed by these tiny little, barely visible cloud of micro drones that are watching him and
the nano drones that hover around his head.
Kind of like a weird little technological halo. He's a really interesting character, and if there's a sequel to the book, I hope there will be. Although this is a standalone book, it is, but I left room for a sequel.
Well, it's nice that it's not a trilogy. Like there's always a greater reluctance to get started with something if
that's it, that is a trilogy, because then you gotta then you're stuck in it.
Yeah. Beginning to read the short story anthology which you have out, which is called The Feverish Stars.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have anything to tell us about that.
Well, the image on the cover is H.P. Lovecraft as a teenager, young teenager. And the short story, The Feverish Stars, is about H.P. Lovecraft and encountering cosmic horror as a person in a peculiar setting. It's more of a psychological horror than anything. But
are you familiar with Joyce Carol Oates' story Night Gaunts, which is also about a teenage H.P. Lovecraft?
No, but it is a sort of subgenre. There's stories about Lovecraft as a person.
Yes,
the story originally appeared in a Lovecraftian anthology like that.
He certainly is an enigma, and I've been wondering whether he would weather the winds of woke revisionism, since he's certainly an unrepentant prejudiced person.
He would not, not unless he was willing to change.
Well, he's out of the picture now. The question is, will we be allowed to continue to...
Right. They're going to turn to him sooner or later and try and suppress his stuff. Although his writing is not really... One story has some kind of anti-European swarthiness. The Horror at Red Hook.
That, and of course the Call of Cthulhu, but there's no question that he's guilty of. But of course, he changed during his lifetime. He changed. He moved from right-wing philosophy towards socialism. He married a Jew after his early years of anti-Semitism and so forth. So he was constantly changing and evolving, but he left behind some horrid juvenile things, which you can't really make excuses for. Anyway, I look forward to reading that story in the book. I almost feel like mentioning my current obsession with Casey Jones, but that would be too far to get into.
Casey Jones, which Casey Jones is this?
Casey Jones, John Luther Jones, the railroad engineer who in the year 1920 had the famous collision on the Illinois Central Railroad. In which
the literal Casey Jones.
He was the only one who died. Well, his face is somewhat like Lovecraft's, and his eyes are haunting in his pictures. He's long-headed and long-jawed, and there are many interesting things about Mr. Jones, but that he's an obsession of mine at the moment, and we shouldn't divert this interview into talking about him. But
I'd like to hear a little.
He sort of looks like Lovecraft in a way that is striking. But he was just a genuinely good and heroic person, which is always so anomalous that it is worthy of studying.
Oh, well, I'm I have childhood memories of songs about him, of course, and
They were
I think
written
there was
by
a movie.
by his black firemen. Wrote that Casey Jones
Really,
that song.
really.
Yes, the one who Casey insisted jump out of the train because there's two locomotives that are going to bump. He saved his life. He saved lives of everyone on the train. The internet is wonderful. You can look up the manifest for that train and read that Mrs. So-and-so received a scraped knee. The whole list of injuries that passengers received, they were minor compared to what happened to Casey. But
What year was that?
1900.
1900.
1900 was that crash on the ICR.
Well, I'm interested in anything, like from the turn of the century and the late 19th century.
It's just
right
his physical, his portrait looking so much like Lovecraft was intriguing to me. And then somebody made an online little movie with model trains and other things, and it ends with on his face, which sort of fades out, and his eyes have such a haunted expression. But he did amazing things as an engineer. This interview is not about that, however. Lovecraft, on the other hand, is more closely allied to the waters that.
Well, I'm interested in this guy Jones now. Now I'm going to start looking things up. But I'm writing a Western now. I pitched a Western trilogy. Speaking of boring trilogies,
where in the West is it set?
It's set it's a Nevada mining camp. At least that's where the first book is. And then they go west from there, and in the subsequent novels. But each book actually is a standalone thing. It's just that there's some holdover from the previous book. The same. It's called Axel Bust Creek. Is the book.
Interesting.
And it's it involves the heroine of it, the woman who's the love interest of the protagonist, is a woman scientist of the 19th century. Not in a steampunk kind of way. It's not that kind of fantasy-based thing where people put on steam-powered rocket packs or something.
Right.
Not like that. It's just that she's well versed in people like in entomology and natural history. She's kind of like Maturin in the Patrick O'Brian novels, but a woman. And her hero is Maria Sibylla Merian.
Maria Sibylla Merman.
Merian, yeah.
Merian, yes. She was a remarkable scientist.
Amazing woman.
And her husband was involved in a cult, a religious cult. I'm trying to think of the name in Canada. Maybe the Lebadists were the people, but she went her own way. She made her own travels and did illustrations to her works of science and natural.
She did. She put out books of beautiful paintings. Women at the time were not allowed to use oil painting. Nobody, at least not in her country, the Netherlands, but I believe. But she worked in watercolors and inks, and turned out these beautiful books. It was like Audubon sort of quality, but mostly, sometimes on birds and so on, and other creatures, spiders, mostly insects, and also she was one of the first to really to really do kind of a visual exposition of metamorphosis of the butterfly, and from the egg into the caterpillar and the chrysalis and the whole process and back again. And she was like this brilliant woman, things were so backward at the time. She literally, if could have been arrested for being a witch or something in some places. But
she actually did field work, and one odd thing is that scientists themselves, who were gentlemen, would not be dirtying their trousers looking at bugs and things. This was for, a collector to go out, like the early paleontologists had bone hunters go out and dig them up, and they actually did the work of discovery. Then the scientists would write them up, and in her case, she did the field work herself. Recently, the world seems to be rediscovering Mary Anning, who I'm sure you know about.
Tell me about her. I'm not sure.
She lived near Dover in England in Lyme Regis, and she uncovered ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, things like that. And of course, the male scientists weren't going to dirty themselves with a lot of digging, but they did writing about her discoveries. But her discoveries are, you know the phrase she sells seashells down by the shell. That was her. She was the one that was written about. We would veer from the topic if we were to.
And at least one who wanted to milk the Tyrannosaurus. But we won't go there. So Anning, A-N-N-I-N-G.
Pigeons have milk. Pigeons get the milk from there.
I did not know that.
And,
I thought it was only mammals.
Cognate with birds, one might make an extension and say that something like that was possible. Mary Anning, A-N-N-I-N-G.
I have seen the name. I'm going to mention it in the book now and have her. Well, what year was she extant?
I believe it was 1830s and 1840s, but of course, all we need is to look at the magic Google, which I won't do now during the interview.
Oh, I will do so. Certainly the Berenice, the heroine of the novel, the woman. It's two people together. So, and
there was Ada Lovelace, the Byron's relative, who laid the foundations for the modern computer. The creator of the difference in.
And I do that I do know about.
Right.
And Mary Anning would be exactly someone that would be referenced by Berenice, and so now she will be for sure. I didn't bring it up before.
It's an interesting story. Paleontology is full of bizarre characters.
Yeah, that's a whole subject, and at the time, it was beginning to be kind of hot in popular.
Mm-hmm. This was pre-Darwinian. After Darwin came along, it became red hot.
Yeah, and also this character is she's a Darwinian, and she's very much into the scientific method, and
there were evolutionists
and she's a suffragist, of course. So these women were around in the late 19th century. They were some very progressive women then, and there were scientist women, and putting a woman like that in the midst of the classic Westerns milieu is kind of the conceit here.
Although it all depends on who gets the ink, as far as history is concerned.
Who gets to eat?
Gets the ink.
Who gets the ink?
Written about.
And who gets to eat?
And it has a bearing on that, definitely.
Who gets the ink? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm eager to get the ink. I will inject it if necessary.
That wonderful substance, ink. Yes.
John Shirley, on behalf of the Ask Dr. Hal show, we would like to thank you for your time to speak with us. We look forward to next month when we will continue with part 2 of our interview.
The nation stand, protecting us all, born of this land. All one people on one beautiful earth is all connected from death to rebirth. All life is sacred, we must learn to be water protectors if we hope to be free. Mama Earth, oh Mama Earth, Mama Earth, oh Mama Earth, we will always love you, Mama Earth, higher, way higher, way higher. Way oh hey, hey, way oh hey, hey, way oh hey, hey, way oh hey, hey, way higher, way oh, way higher, oh, way higher, oh, higher, way higher, way higher, way higher, way higher, way higher, way higher.
Ladies and gentlemen, we look at the desolate surface of the red planet Mars, and the first flight of the tiny miniature helicopter named Ingenuity. You know, this wee helicopter contains a little bit of the wing fabric from the Wright brothers, Wilbur and Orville, their first flyer that they produced in their bicycle shop that took off at Kitty Hawk in 1903. And now here we are on the red planet with Igor Sikorsky's helicopter somehow managing to navigate an air with a pressure equivalent to 1% of the air pressure here on our planet. Of course, the gravity is slightly less, but still quite
That's us going out
an achievement.
back.
And now from Mission Control, a word. Meanwhile, we saw the owl, and for Mother's Day, we see her first hatchling there. A tiny thing. But that was last time, and since then, the other egg is hatched, and now 2 large children. The owlets are inhabiting the space. Here they receive a delicious frog as a treat from Mama. An observance for Mother's Day from the Ask Dr. Hal show, and we wish them well.
And we're back.
Yes. How nice to see the social justice disco. And we're going to have more with John Shirley when we return next month.
We are indeed. We have questions that we had for him, but we wanted to get those book previews out there because we want the audience to know that John Shirley's got a couple of new books out there.
And
So,
very entertaining they are. I read them.
I'm working my way through the novel right now, and it's an excellent story. Recommend it highly.
Yeah, he also wrote half or better of the songs on the last Blue Oyster Cult album too.
He
Yes.
did indeed.
We'll with them.
We're also doing something a little different tonight. For our closing music, usually we play the theme to House of Frankenstein for the show. But in this particular case, we're going to play one of John Shirley's Screaming Geezers songs from John's band, the Screaming Geezers. So that will be at the end of the show.
Possibly one of the coolest band names ever.
The Screaming Geezers.
Keep them on their toes.
And there's a picture of a screaming geezer that will accompany that, and it's John himself.
Yes.
So
One
you will
of a few screaming geezers.
you will see. Yes, he is the head screaming geezer.
Are
But
you sure it's not the screaming apostrophe
it
geezers?
might be the screaming geezers. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
just throw it out there.
It's like saying moment of silence when you really meant to say moment of science. It's just.
Is that what you said?
I
don't think.
Oh no. But I say it all the time, so it's bound to happen.
No, we avoid moments of silence here if we can. We try to fill every pulsation of time with content. And pursuant to that, did any more questions come in while we were showing our features?
Indeed, they did, Dr. Hal, and we have one here. Let me go ahead and expand it. Hal, I am a writer and appreciate your recitations. Do you also write poetry? If so, would you recite something you have written? If not, will you recite something from your favorite poet? And that is a question for $20 from Sci-Fi Surrealist.
Well, yes, I write poems. I tend not to memorize mine. I memorize other people's. I'd have to read mine out of a notebook or something. Unfortunately, I often misplace the notebooks. A whole bunch of poems that I wrote and intended to submit for publication have disappeared, and I've been looking for more than a year for them. Maybe I'll turn them up sometime. I wouldn't have taken them out of the house. But also, I've been a songwriter in my career and a lyricist, and those, since they are accompanied in my mind by music, I do remember and am able to recite. But are you sure you wouldn't like a real poet's words instead of mine? Let's see, $20. Well, in a show I wrote called Brick Burnside in the 23rd century AD, it takes place, part of it in a spaceship in outer space, and when there is a disaster in space, as there occasionally must be, a funeral service is performed. These are the lyrics from that funeral service. I won't sing them, though. I'll just say them. You vessels of delicate life, now broken and scattered by the aimless hands of entropy, do you recall? For you, the word was spoken, in whose name your souls created energy. Energy cannot be destroyed, though it is absorbed in the void. Still it shall be, for all time, employed. As you were, so now are we. As you are, so shall we be. Whether you rest in earthen grave, or toss forever as the fighting wave on a night black sea. Energy cannot be destroyed, though it be absorbed in the void. Still it shall be, for all of time, employed. Reform. In our future scenario, they say reform, where we would say amen, since the future society is a product of a revolutionarily reformed society. So I hope that was satisfying, and thank you for your generosity and your question.
Very nice, Dr. Hal. I have a $15 question from our good friend Reverend Gofflin.
Oh, great.
And it is, Dear Dr. Hal, as you well know, the trick of film animation is achieved thanks to persistence of vision. Is it possible to manipulate the other senses in a similar manner for entertainment purposes? Persistence of smell, perhaps?
Well, if the variety of smells were produced at a fast rate, they would, of course, be perceived as a continuity of smell. And yet that function is partially delegated to the mind itself, which interprets data. And it would be confusing to the human brain to start receiving data in a way heretofore unpracticed. And yet that old human brain is very active. And so I would suggest anyone interested in this subject to pursue it and even produce the stop motion smells, possibly the stop motion sounds, I would say, except for the fact that, especially in the digital realm, this is how sounds are presented to us as a series of bits of information made into a single continuity by the actions of the perceptive mass in the human brain. How about the stop motion sensation of touch? You know, the advantage of all of these theoretical processes would be the opportunity to introduce things that one does not normally encounter in the senses, and perhaps at a fast rate, perhaps at the animator's 24 frames per second, or even faster, extended by the unique abilities of today's technology. So let all kinds of stop motion animation bloom. I say the animation is actually done in the case of drawing or stop motion three-dimensional animation with moving the models or with making the drawings. So you will be animating while you produce the stop motion, feeling, tasting, hearing, and smelling. And I salute you and wish you the best of luck in this enterprise.
Dr. Hal, I have a question here from Pope Chesterfield Wieners.
Uh-huh.
If you had a dream that none of your dreams would come true, and you woke up and had none of your real-life dreams come true, would that be a dream come true?
Well, one does not remember, one does not know what one has dreamed unless one remembers it. And one does not remember it unless one wakes up during it or directly afterward. Often, depending on how long after you wake or how confused you may be at the time of waking, your message is scrambled and becomes more so as sensory information from the non-dream world, which you do not direct, comes tumbling in. So it would never be such a precise equivalence. If it were, then it might be that you've been practicing effective dreaming, which certain sages, philosophers, and mystics have been able to do. That is, enter your dream state, recognize that you are dreaming, and begin to control your dreams, realizing that you are the choreographer as well as the person experiencing the dream. In order to do that, you must make an exceptional effort. And once again, I wish you luck, sincerely, on that. As for whether you would be able to make some final judgment about it, not until the process of dreaming is over would that be possible. And when is the process of dreaming ever over?
Oh, and Dr. Hal, I should have mentioned that was a $6 question.
$6?
It was a $6 question.
Fine. That
Indeed
American dollar is good everywhere. Although odd numbers are less lucky than even numbers, but still, I'll take your $6 with thanks. I hope you were satisfied with my answer.
Very good. I have a question here from Reverend Scott Clutterbuck.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a $3 question.
Mm-hmm.
And
good. Odd numbered lucky question.
Yes, and it's an interesting question. If nothing is impossible, then would it be possible for something to be impossible?
Well, yes, it would be, because whether something is possible or impossible depends on the rules. Without the rules, nothing is possible or impossible. It only is. There are rules, and these we call the laws of physics. But earlier humans thought that they were the rules of the divine beings who set everything in motion and hung the world on well-oiled hinges and set the dark foundations deep and their oozy parameters also set. And who is to say that they didn't? Because we have to obey these laws of physics. We have to obey these rules because we are players in the physical realm. Once again, I've gone a little bit too far down the track, so quickly tell me what the answer or question part of the question is so I can provide the answer.
If nothing is impossible, then would it be possible for something to be impossible?
Yes, it's always possible for something to be possible. But is it always possible to us? Since we are shuttlecocks battered around by the laws of physics, we're not always in the place to receive it properly. And everything is subjective. That is relativity, as Einstein postulated. Each person is in a different plenum, in a manner of speaking. And if we do go back to the gods or God making the rules, it must be asked if it is in character for the gods to break their own rules. Of course, this is what we think has happened when a miracle has taken place. That is, the divine creatures reached out from behind the curtain and did something, something which would not have occurred otherwise, which could not have occurred otherwise. Well, this didn't originate here in our world, but our world's laws of physics go chugging on, and so they would accept this change into our world and start weaving it in to the fabric of its history, biology, and atomic structure.
I have a question here from Reverend Numina.
Okay.
And it is a $9 question. And it is a subjective question. What is your favorite frog?
Well, I like them all. Those frogs are remarkable creations. Among living species, I am enamored of the giant African frog. 5 feet and longer, of colossal frog that lives under certain waterfalls in the dark continent. That is one hell of a frog. Of course, if one speaks of frog kind a little bit more loosely, we may include the batrachia, the toads, and among them, my favorite toad is unequivocally the Colorado River toad, Bufo alvarius. So I'll say that the African Goliath frog is, for the time being, my favorite frog until another champion comes to upset it in my affections.
Well, Dr. Hal, I'm going to give our question queue a chance to build back up. We do have a few more questions sitting in there, but we'll see if we can get a couple more in. And I want to remind the audience, we do work also on the honor system here. So if you are intimidated by our tip jar, we can walk you through, any problems that you might have. And but don't let that stop you from getting a question in. Just let us know what you'd like to offer to Dr. Hal, and we will make sure to get it all to work. And on that note, though, I'm going to go ahead and give us another monster movie moment. So here's one coming at you.
Yes. The most terrifying story the screen has ever told. Professor Henry Harrington returns from a visit to Lufford Hall, where he asked demon worshipper Julian Carswell to call off his demonic aggression. What an uncluttered garage the professor has. And now, time to close the doors on another mysterious evening.
Nec sine horrore secretus
Or
est.
locet nocturnibus ignis, chorus aege pandum omnique personatum. Just as the Necronomicon predicted, out of a cloud of glowing particles, the demon.
Diabolus incarnatus
Yes,
est et hominus.
it is the night of the demon. Maybe you don't want to leave the car after all. Now watch out for those high tension wires, high voltage. High voltage. And so it goes.
And we're back.
An interesting film, that.
Worth a watch. If it's kind of a little obscure, but absolutely wonderful movie.
Well, especially the long version, which I have to put in here, that I discovered along with my friend Merle Regal. When the director of the film, Jacques Tourneur, died, he believed that the long version had been destroyed. But my friend and I have just been studying a write-up of the film in the extinct Photon magazine, which analyzed it and described all the missing scenes. Well, we went to the theater and they started showing the movie, and we realized we were seeing the missing scenes, having seen the article. So we went up and told the projectionist. It turned out that Columbia Pictures had struck a new print of it and had just happened to strike it from the full version, which they didn't even know they had. And so ever since then, the full version has been more widely known. An interesting book about the film is called Beating the Devil, and I recommend it. The sets in it were created by Ken Adam, who worked on 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the musical score by Muir Matheson, conducted by the London Symphony Orchestra, is a fine score for a horror film. The movie is based on the story Casting the Runes by M.R. James, which also should be read by devotees of demonic horror.
Very good. I have a kind of add-on question to one that was stated earlier, and this comes from Reverend Ramulak. What if St. George didn't slay the dragon?
Well, he probably would not have been canonized.
And that was a $10 question.
Oh, $10. That's very good. You see, he was only famous for having slain the dragon. And it seems to me that the Princess Abra should get some credit for turning it into a meek creature that followed her willingly along. All St. George did was betray the confidence of the dragon by whirling his sword and chopping off its head, as he betrayed the Roman army by selling them a huge lot of defective armor. But it's not... if you do a famous deed, there you go. And the dragon, in Christian iconography, represents Satan, the evil one, who it is said will be bound underground in chains after the apocalypse for 1,000 years. The dragon, with its bifid tongue, is, as I said earlier, serpentine, similar to the dracontropede, or Eve tempting serpent from the Garden of Eden. All of these creatures were thought to be linked by the Christian Church. Let me add that the Christian Church had a habit of lumping anything that wasn't Christian in with the demons and devils. And we also have to remember that everything written about dragons and monsters, werewolves and the like, is written by people who don't like them. That is to say, their enemies. So, we have to take all such writings with a necessary grain of salt. Thanks for the question.
Dr. Hal, I have a very interesting question here, and it's a $66 question.
66. Wow.
And it is from an old friend of our show, Sister Decadence.
Great.
And her question is simply, may I have a recitation too?
Of course you may, and it follows now. Thank you for the question. This poem is by Lewis Carroll from his work Through the Looking Glass. Some see it as a parody of William Wordsworth's Resolution and Independence, the interrogation of the old leech gatherer. However, in the book, the White Knight recites it. I'll tell you everything I can. There's little to relate. I saw an aged man a-sitting on a gate. Who are you, aged man? I said, and how is it you live? And his answer trickled through my head like water through a sieve. He said, I hunt for butterflies that feed among the wheat and make them into mutton pies and sell them in the street. I sell them unto men, he said, who sail on stormy seas, and that's the way I get my bread, a trifle, if you please. But I was thinking of a plan to dye one's whiskers green, and always use so large a fan that they could not be seen. And having no reply to give to what the old man said, I cried, Come, tell me how you live, and thumped him on the head. His accent smiled, took up the tale. He said, I go my ways, and when I find a mountain rill, I set it in a blaze, and thence they make a stuff they call Roland's Macassar oil. Yet tuppence halfpenny is all they give me for my toil. But I was thinking of a way to feed oneself on batter, and so go on from day to day, getting a little fatter. I shook him well from side to side, until his face was blue. Come, tell me how you live, I cried, and what is it you do? He said, I hunt for haddocks' eyes among the heather bright, and work them into waistcoat buttons in the silent night. And these I do not sell for gold, nor coin of silvery shine, but for a copper halfpenny, and that will purchase 9. I sometimes set limed twigs for crabs. I sometimes search the grassy knolls for wheels of handsome cabs. And that's the way, he gave a wink, whereby I get my wealth, and very gladly will I drink your honor's noble health. I heard him then, for I had just completed my design to keep the Menai Bridge from rust by boiling it in wine. I thanked him much for telling me the way he got his wealth, but chiefly for his wish that he might drink my noble health. And now, if e'er by chance I put my fingers into glue, or madly cram a right-hand foot into a left-hand shoe, or if I drop upon my toe a very heavy weight, I weep, for it reminds me so of that old man I used to know, whose hair was whiter than the snow, whose looks were mild, whose speech was slow, who seemed distracted by his woe, who rocked his body to and fro, whose face was very like a crow, with eyes like cinders all aglow, who mumbled haltingly and low, as if his mouth were full of dough, who snorted like a buffalo, that summer evening, long ago, a-sitting on a gate. Thank you so much.
That was lovely. Dr. Hal, I have a question here from AgriJag. It is a $21 question.
Oh, very good.
And how much fish meal would a harp seal steal if a harp seal could steal fish meal?
All the fish meal a harp seal could steal if a harp seal had the opportunity, if the harp seal had the opportunity to steal fish meal. But surely a harp seal of the Phokidae would prefer a fresh fish. They are hardwired to enjoy the taste of an absolutely fresh fish being munched in their candid mouths. And so it would be, something to eat if you couldn't get anything else. But under the necessity of foraging for one's self, it is often necessary to make compromises. And under those conditions, certainly the dire conditions which always exist in nature, a harp seal would steal as much fish meal as a harp seal possibly could steal. This is unlike the related question of how much wood a woodchuck could chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood, because, as I have said elsewhere, indeed written in a monograph called Coordinated Casting Motions in Marmotus Marmax, the arm of the woodchuck is not made for hurling or throwing objects. Anyway, that's an extra, and thanks for your question.
Dr. Howe, this is something I've always wondered myself, and it's a $12 question from Pope Chigger Goodpasture, Pope Chigger Goodpasture. And it is, why did we decide to give February just 28 days when lots of other months have 31 days? Couldn't we have just taken some of those 31st days from other months and added them to February?
Well, we could, but it would be more complicated even than this. And the reformation of the calendar works the best with the 28 days and the occasional leap year. This may be complicated by the fact that the Earth is rotating faster now, which is alarming some scientists. Still, the celestial clock seems to be more or less as it always has been. I should say that I do not believe, as some say, that February is the shortest month because, and that's why they made it Black History Month. They made it Black History Month because Abraham Lincoln was born in February, which was thought to be of interest in the story of African American emancipation, and no racist was in charge of naming the months. Still, a story like that dies hard. Really, it's better that we not monkey with the calendar because it is universally understood and known, and to create a new one would be to create a new necessity for educating people that it had changed.
Good.
At the last revolution of the calendar, we lost an entire week, which must have been inconvenient.
Let me check our queue here.
What do you have?
Oh, I have a question here from AgriJag. It's for... Oh, I'm sorry. I asked that already. Oh, yes. Here we have one. This is simply an anonymous questioner. It is a Ko-fi supporter, it says. And it says, how many Subgenius Foundation cash in on or hijack the Q phenomenon? And that's for $5.
I'm having a little trouble parsing it. How many Subgenius
I'm sorry.
Foundation?
How can the Subgenius Foundation cash in on or hijack the Q phenomenon?
Well, I don't know if we, the assembled body of the Church of the Subgenius, communicants in the Subgenius religion, want to welcome the QAnon crazies into our ranks because they already have their own Subgenius-like set of beliefs. But one thing about Subgenius is that we do incorporate all beliefs beliefs, superstitions, stories, legends, popular culture narratives, all we assert have some measure of truth. But cult-like beliefs in things which have been worked out to the nth degree have little room for truth to creep in. The flexibility of subgenius belief is its great strength, its ability to be expanded, such as the doctrine of correctness, which asserts that any old thing a subgenius says at any time automatically becomes part of our doctrine and our lore. Thus it is we might find ourselves unexpectedly ingesting QAnon beliefs if they bothered to come to our side of the fence. But it is their nature to stay resolutely on their side.
I have a $6 question from Reverend Dr. Otto Haversham Herring.
Mm-hmm.
And this is our last question of the evening, by the way, but I will check our queue again before we determine that for a finality. But the question, this is the last question. If life is so short, why do we do things that we don't like and like so many things that we don't do?
Well, you see, the difficulty here is that we know life is short, but we don't know it all the time. And we like to pretend that it is not short. And we like to pretend that there is time to do everything as well as the stuff that we don't want to do. But of course, life is short and death is long. Anyway, there was something else I was going to say. Oh, yes, we don't entirely live in the present. As humans, we spend a lot of our imaginative time in the future or the past. And that means that we then plan for that future or attempt to justify that past. This is affecting too, and also a binding chain which only the mystics and sages, and especially J.R. Bob Dobbs, the most slackful being in creation, can emulate.
Very good. Hal, I did want to mention, too, that we did have an anonymous $12 tip that came in. We had a $3 tip that came in with no question attached from Bedbird Person.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there's one more up here. We have a $15 from Joseph Barney. With no question attached. And I believe that's the last one that didn't have a question attached to it. But I wanted to make sure that we thanked them for their kind offering.
Yeah, it's nice to get a tip. I'll do a small poem for that, so they get something back.
Dr. Hal, would we like to consider that the closing poem for the evening? And
well, I didn't intend it to be, so perhaps if that's the case, we should move on and do that particular poem. I won't prioritize the small one in the place of the larger one. There are always more Ask Dr. Hal shows and more opportunities to recite more poems as long as the audience will tolerate it.
We will take as many poems as you would like to recite.
Well, let me do The Siege of Belgrade by Alaric Alexander Watts, written in the 1840s. Watts was a newsman, and he needed to fill space, as we all do. He needed content, and so he created it. He created this poem, which is, interestingly enough, an abecedarian poem. That means that each line begins with a different letter of the alphabet, running through A to Z, but back again. Moreover, each line within each line, every word begins with that letter of the alphabet. And so, The Siege of Belgrade by Alaric Alexander Watts. An Austrian army awfully arrayed, boldly by battery besieged Belgrade. Cossack commanders cannonading come, dealing destruction's devastating doom. Every endeavor engineers essay, for fame, for fortune, fighting, furious fray. General against general grapples, gracious God, how honors heaven heroic hardihood. Infuriate, indiscriminate, in ill, jack-booted jackals jostled Jack, Jam, Jill. Kindred kill kinsman, kinsman kindred kill. Labor low levels, longest, loftiest lines. Men march mid moles, mid mounds, mid murderous mines. Now noxious, noisy numbers, nothing, naught of outward obstacles opposing aught. Poor patriots, partly purchased, partly pressed, white quaking quickly, quarter, quarter, quest. Reason returns, religious right redounds. Suwarrow stops such sanguinary sounds. Truce to thee, Turkey, triumph to thy train, unwise, unjust, unmerciful Ukraine. Vanish vain victory, vanish victory vain. Why wish we warfare? Wherefore welcome were Xerxes, Eximenes, Xanthus, Xavier? Yield, yield, ye youths, ye yeomen, yield your yell, Zeus's, Zarpater's, Zoroaster's zeal, attracting all, arms against acts appeal. But I now understand that it's time to go out and close. Is that this story?
Let me check the queue one more time and see if anybody.
Anything more came in, yes. So we can always hang out in the chat room afterwards. But
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
consider myself still on duty as long as there's the possibility that a question might come in.
There is nothing else in the queue. If anybody has anything out there, now would be the time. But I'm going to say going once, going twice.
Yeah, that time has come and is gone.
Saint Inkfinger, what do you have for us this week?
Well, don't I do the longer? Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
cutting the man off.
Did I miss something?
I tried to explain, I threw the Siege of Belgrade in to answer the donation, but I do have a closing recitation. Let me get through that.
Yes.
And then
Please. Yes.
Gratefully listen to St. Inkfinger.
I misunderstood.
Well, I didn't make it explicit. But this is The Jumblies by Edward Lear. They went to sea in a sieve, they did. Let me start that one again. They sailed away. That's right. They sailed away in a sea, they did. In a sieve they went to sea, in spite of all their friends could say. On a winter's morn, on a stormy day, in a sieve they went to sea. And when the sieve spun round and round, and everyone called, "You'll all be drowned," they called aloud, "Our sieve ain't big, but we don't care a button. We don't care a fig. In our sieve we'll go to sea." Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. They sailed away in a sieve, they did. In a sieve they sailed so fast, with only a beautiful pea-green veil tied with a riband by way of a sail to a small tobacco pipe mast. And everyone said, who saw them go, "Oh, won't they be soon upset, you know, for the sky is dark and the voyage is long, and come what may, it's extremely wrong in a sieve to sail so fast." far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. The water, it soon came in, it did. The water, it soon came in. So to keep themselves dry, they wrapped their feet in a pinky paper they folded neat, and they fastened it down with a pin. And they spent the night in a crockery jar, and each of them said, "How wise we are! Though the sky be dark and the voyage be long, yet we never could think we were rash or wrong, as round in our sieve we spin. Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green, and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. So all night long they sailed away, and when the sun went down, they whistled and warbled a moony song to the echoing sounds of a coppery gong in the shade of the mountains brown. Oh, Timballo, how happy we are when we live in a sieve and a crockery jar, and all night long by the moonlight pale we sail with a beautiful pea-green sail in the shade of the mountains brown. Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. They sailed to the western sea, they did, to a land all covered with trees, and they bought an owl, and a useful cart, and a pound of rice, and a cranberry tart, and a hive of silvery bee. And they bought a pig, and some green jackdaws, and a lovely monkey with lollipop paws, and 17 bags of Edelweiss tea, and 40 bottles of Ringbo Ree, and no end of Stilton cheese. Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green, and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. And in 20 years, they all came back. In 20 years or so, and everyone said, "How tall they've grown, for they've been to the lakes and the Torrible Zone and the hills of the Chankly Boar." And they drank their health, and they gave them a feast of dumplings made of beautiful yeast. And everyone said, "If we only live, we too must go to sea in a sieve to the hills of the Chankly Boar." Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. Edward Lear.
Wonderful.
Take it away, Saint Finger.
Mother, tell your children not to walk my way. Tell your children not to hear my words, what they mean, what they say. Mother, mother, can you keep them in the dark for life? Can you hide them from the waiting world? Oh, mother, father, gonna take your daughter out tonight. Gonna show her my world. Oh, Father, not about to see your light. But if you wanna find hell with me, I can show you what it's like. Till you're bleeding. Not about to see your light. But if you wanna find hell with me, can show you what is. Mother, tell your children not to hold my hand. Tell your children not to understand. Oh, mother, father, do you want to bang heads with me? Do you want to fear everything? Oh, father, not about to see your light. But if you want to find out with me, I can show you what it's like till you're bleeding. Not about to see your light. But if you want to find out with me, I can show you what it. Do you have something to say there, Pontius?
The Ask Dr. Hal show would like to thank everyone who participated in the show tonight. We would like to especially thank John Shirley, Phat Mandee, Cornell University, the Empire Jazz Orchestra, and especially our audience who put the ask in Ask Dr. Hal. St. Inkfinger, take us home.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Mother, tell your children not to hold my hand. Tell your children not to understand. Oh, mother, father, do you want to bang heads with me? Do you want to fear everything? Oh, father, not about to see your light. But if you want to find out with me, I can show you what it's like till you're bleeding. Not about to see your light. But if you want to find out with me, I can show you what it's Mother!
Some folks like water, some folks like wine. Well, I like to dance a straight strychnine. You may get your money, then I like this stuff. But once you try it, can't get enough. Wine is red, poison is blue. Strychnine is good, but what's ailing you? Yeah, yeah. Wine is red, poison is blue. Strychnine is good, but what's ailing you? If you listen to what I say, you try strychnine someday. Make you jump, baby, make you shout. Might even knock you out. Some folks like water. Some folks are like wine, 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 wine. Maybe I like to taste. Oh, straight strychnine. Strychnine. Hey.